Heck yeah. Here we go.
Got it. And I think that means we are live on Facebook with the amazing Matt Lachenko. And I say that right?
Man, that was like, you almost sounded like a relative.
So to give everybody a little background, Matt was one of my first coaches in real estate. He coached for a big national program at the time. I think he did that program with us 2 or 3 times in my first couple years in real estate, and really totally changed my mindset, just not only in what I thought I could do for myself, but really just creating that positive mindset around everything that goes on within real estate. The one thing that I realized not too long ago was the struggles that the rescue community have and the struggles that real estate have. You still end up with the same situation where you go through a very rough time, and within a few hours, or you have a very rough transaction, or you take care of a very tough rescue, and within a few hours, you have to face the public and be this. In a time when, I can be honest, a lot of us are just mad at humanity as a whole, right? I'm not mad at the person I'm talking to. I'm mad at all of humanity for the way this animal was treated, or in real estate, you know, some of the other pieces that make it fun. And so I started talking with people, and I thought, who do I know that is never in a bad mood? And that brought me to Matt. So the one thing I can say is I don't believe that Matt's never in a bad mood.
Just ask my wife.
Maybe you go and like bang on your car windows when nobody's looking. I don't know. But what I realized with Matt was he had a very unique ability to put those things away and get the job done. That's really why I came to Matt and said, hey, I need to talk about how you are positive in the face of rough times. And I said, hey, what should we call this? And I came up with a bunch of names, and Matt was like, bam, this is it. Purposeful positivity.
Yeah, purposefully positive, the tactical advantage.
So right. I am going to ask Matt a few questions, but I'm really just going to let him go and do his thing because that's what he does. But to give a little bit, what's your background, Matt? Tell everybody a little bit about your background.
Well, I mean, if we go all the way back, so I was born in Poland, and our family escaped communism 2 weeks before martial law was passed in Poland. We fled the country through Germany, spent 6 months in an immigration camp in the mountains of Austria in the Alps while we were waiting for visas for my family in New Jersey. So I grew up in an immigrant Polish-speaking household. My dad is an artist, and my mom just took whatever jobs that we could. And we grew up very, like, I wouldn't say poor, but maybe you could say poor. I mean, it was meager. Like, I didn't realize people had more than one pair of pants, like, for a long time. I thought everybody had a guy that showed up with a box of toys, like, once a year for you to pick from. Like, that's what I just thought. Like, I didn't know, right? However, the reason why I bring that up and talk about it is one of the conversations that is early, that like really was programmed into me early on from my mom, was it doesn't matter what we have, we don't have to look poor. Right. And so it was always like, you get to choose how you show up, regardless of your circumstance and situation. And so the good thing about that was that it empowered us to be able to be a certain way, but there was also a negative side to that as well, right? Because still on the flip side of that coin, even though it was about pride and it was about showing up a certain way, on the other side of that is judgment. And it was about looking a certain way to not be judged. And so having to balance growing up in that capacity was really something interesting. And when we talked earlier, you know, Joe always mentioned that what I show or what people see is a certain, like, it's a certain thing, and it's not disingenuous. It's just purposeful, and it's a choice. I guess it's not an accident. I wore this shirt today. I didn't even think about it this morning. However, I wore one of my favorite shirts, and it's choose kind. And I think at the end of the day, how we show up is a choice. It's not always the easiest choice. However, it is a choice. And if you have a choice, why wouldn't we choose the most powerful or productive way to be? And so going back to that conversation, I did not grow up this way. I was angry, skeptical, judgmental. I bought into like gossip. It wasn't good for me for quite a long time. It wasn't until like college where I started to be on the receiving end of the things that I was putting out. And I was living in Philadelphia. I was living downtown in Philly, and it was rough. And escaped a carjacking. Almost got held up at gunpoint. The neighbors in our apartment were broken into and duct taped. Like there was all this stuff that happened in like a month. And I was like, what's going on? And like, I realized that there was an energy that I was putting out that I was receiving. Right. And one of my coach friends had put a post out recently, and he says, life is simply a series of mirrors and magnets. So we see in others what's inside of us, and we receive what we are, not what we want. And so if you're on the receiving end of a lot of drama and chaos, it may be because inside that's what you celebrate. That's what you love to be a part of. And the universe is not simply saying, the universe is simply saying, hey, if this is the energy that you want to spend on, I'm going to reward you with more of that. So if you love to gossip and you love drama and chaos, guess what? The universe is like, have some more. And if you're the person talking and scheming and all these things, guess what? Everyone you look at, you're going to perceive as someone who's talking and scheming, and then, right? Life is simply mirrors and magnets, right? And so let me preface this as well, is that I'm also like the least airy fairy out there. I know we're talking energy and universe, and like, I don't want to turn off this conversation yet, right? I'm extremely driven, tactical, results-oriented, bottom line, get to the steak, forget the sizzle. However, I've got enough data and anecdotal evidence that what we're talking about is tactical and not fun and energetic and colorful, right? Like what we're talking about is strategic and it's real. And my life since then, as a result of a very specific choice of breaking a pattern of negative thought, energy, and saying, okay, I can't control that first instinct. What's next is up to me. How I respond is up to me. What happened, happened. The story that I make around what happened is up to me. It's my choice. And I can release the negative version, and I can give benefit of the doubt or the positivity piece as well. So fast forward into like where we met. Like, so I really started going down and started to read the big thinkers, Jack Canfield and Dr. Joe Dispenza, and a lot of the thought leaders in like The Secret movie. Like that was pretty airy fairy, but there's a couple like really good people in that shared a lot of really good stuff. And I started developing just a practice of positivity, of gratitude, habits around those things. And then when I got into real estate, the company that we were with did a lot of training. And what was really interesting is that all of the training started with mindset, because I think everybody on this call can attest that we all know what to do in order to hit all the goals in our life. We all know what to do to achieve success and happiness in every area of our life. And yet the only thing that's stopping us from actually having versus desire is mindset, limiting beliefs, fears, thoughts, negativity, all of that. Like, that's it. Like, there's nothing new to be discovered. Everything is Googleable. Everything's on YouTube. There are no secrets anymore. So the reason we either are not where we desire to be or do not have what we intend is because we are our own worst enemy and we're letting our negativity and our mindset and our energy get in the way. And so the trainings around that are stuff that I was super passionate about. And what was cool was once I got so I had a tactical advantage of the energy that I had. And here's the thing is that your energy precedes your greeting. And people either do business with you or don't before you speak. Your mouth either validates or invalidates the relationship because your energy shows up before you, either in that meeting or how they see you online or how they perceive you otherwise. And so, interestingly enough, I had a tactical advantage and my business started to grow and I was able to help people out of some really difficult situations and was able to create some systems. But my passion was always helping others, mentoring others. I was also a professor before real estate. So my background's in theater and the arts, a whole different weird story, not for this. And yet, so I've got a master's of fine arts in acting and directing. I work professionally in the theater community as an actor and an educator. And what was interesting is I always had an ability to take the creative and the analytical and bring them together harmoniously. Like I taught intro to theater for non-majors. So I had pharmacy and med students on the floor rolling around breathing purple, right? Like that was my gift. I could get the analytical, skeptical into the creative and the open, and connect the two. So in real estate and how we met there was that one program that I became a coach in. I took it as a student. And what was interesting is that 90% of the program was about mindset, thoughts, limiting belief, the science and the psychology of achievement around behavior and operant conditioning patterns. What's interesting is that dog training, right? Or any kind of training is operant conditioning, positive reinforcement circle training, right? We operate in the exact same way. Everything we've experienced up to this point goes through this same cycle of programming thoughts, feelings, actions, and results, right? Every experience that we have is the filter of how we experience and receive the world. And so when we either are attempting to do something or something comes at us, it's filtered through all those experiences. We don't have to think. Our subconscious remembers all these things and we instantly have a feeling. And that feeling either causes us to take action or inaction, and that action or inaction creates a result that then creates more programming, either validates or invalidates the programming. And so understanding that piece, I was so passionate about that, and it really just solidified that if you learned to be a certain way, if you were conditioned to be a certain way, you can then choose to condition yourself in a new way by creating new programming. That's the beauty of programming, is that you just get new code, new experiences. Surround yourself with people with a different operating system. And all of a sudden, you start taking on their code. And so choosing who I'm working with, choosing who I'm surrounding with, created now this new system. So I feel like we're going down a tangent without any questions, and I'm doing a lot of talking. That kind of brings us up to where we met, right? And in the course, so having taken that course, I was super passionate about it. And I said, what do I got to do to be that guy? What do I got to do to qualify to be someone like that? And so that was given the path. And then it took me about 4 or 5 years to go qualify to become one of those coaches, to travel around the country and present the material. And that's how we met. And
there's something you just said, Matt, that looking at kind of the rescues that we work with and stuff, and we've all been in this as rescue folks, where burnout's tough in the rescue world, right? Especially with volunteers. And I think every one of us have had a volunteer who said, I'm burnout, and left, got away from it for a little while, and then they come back re-energized. And maybe it has a lot to do with just not being around the everyday for a little bit, of not seeing the worst of the worst for 3, 4, 5 months, whatever it is. It's interesting that you say that, because I see that just with with the rescue I work with. People sometimes take a step away, and now when they come back, they're re-energized. But that daily seeing of the negative beats you down over time.
Yes. And so thanks for bringing this up. This is interestingly, this is a conversation we just had on one of our group coaching calls just yesterday. And it has everything to do with, so we had a conversation around, like, everyone operates with purpose. And this is a really purpose-driven kind of conversation. I trust that everybody that's watching this is here because you've got a huge passion and a heart for creating and change and providing safety and saving these animals, right? Like there's purpose there. Now, in order to achieve that, you have to face the worst of the worst, right? And so the thing is that does your willingness match your why? A lot of people say they want to do these things. However, your willingness has to not only match, it has to exceed your why. Your willingness to go into the darkness, your willingness to pull people through that has to exceed your why. And if you don't have targets, metrics, or outcomes, the pain or the discomfort without a finishing line can cause burnout and failure, right? Like if someone keeps moving the finish line and you're just constantly in discomfort, and like the only reason I have all these medals is because there is a finish line. I knew when it could stop. Like all of those sucked a lot. However, I was like, okay, I'm 8 miles in, only 7 more to go, or 6 more to go, or I'm 13 in, 13 to go. Or like, I knew like, if I just get to that next telephone pole, I can get to the next telephone pole. And then when it's over, I can recover and take a minute. I can only assume that some of the biggest challenges that we experience in this world is that there's always more to save. So what can I do?
Yeah, 100%.
Right. So, if I'm having that conversation, is like, okay, it reminds me of, I'm sure you guys all have heard the story of the 2 individuals walking along the beach, and the child reaches down and there's starfish everywhere. And the child reaches down and grabs a starfish and throws it in the ocean. And the gentleman says, why waste your time? Look at all these starfish. Why waste your time? It's not worth it. And he says, to that one, it was. To that one, it was the world. Right. And so, having, I think, the purpose and the milestone of that goal or what you can do versus what's like still out there, and being able to compartmentalize and say, I don't know if I can change this entire world. And yet it's like, why not? And yet I'm making a difference right now for this animal, for this group, for this community, for, whatever. And how can I do that? And then permeate that and make it ripple out. So burnout for a lot of my clients, for those that I coach right now, has everything to do with a lack of milestone goal or purpose to the pain. Like, is there a purpose to the pain? Is there, like, how do we compartmentalize it? Or how do we have incremental or measurable limits to that discomfort to where you could take a breath? And maybe it is, I need to step away for a week so I can come back. Like release it.
So you 100% believe this is a developed skill? Because I think a lot of people automatically believe there's certain people who have this skill and certain people who don't, right?
It's without a doubt a develop. And here's why I know that is because if I'm not purposefully going after it, I lose it. I mean, it's just like fitness. Like it's absolutely something that just requires repetition and consciousness and awareness. That's it. Like the moment, so I knew the moment that I stopped tracking exactly what I put in my mouth, I blow up. Weird. Like if I just eat till when I feel full, like I just keep getting bigger. However, I have to track it. And the moment I track it and pay attention to it, I have measurable control. And so positivity, thoughts, actions, feelings, all of those things for me is it's just having the presence and the awareness to know, I'm going dark, I'm going negative, stop, flip it. How can I flip it? How can I turn this around? How can I choose a more positive or proactive or healing or supportive or learning-based thought, as opposed to limited, judgmental, critical, negative, angry, dark, right? Like there's two different sides to that. And yeah, it's absolutely learnable, and it's lifelong, or at least it is for me so far.
Well, and it sounds like it's something that you have, it's not only a developed skill, it's something that you have to practice on a regular basis.
Absolutely. Listen, we're just coming back from our cruise, and the weather was jacking up the entire East Coast. And my father-in-law was trying to help us get through, and we were talking to the gate people, and behind us, there were 80 people waiting as well. And we finally made it up to the front. And I said, I knew what they were about to deal with, right? And so I'm just like, hi. I can't imagine what it's like today for you. And if there's anything you can do to help us, like, we would, like, what can we do here? Can you, blah, 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 blah. And people are screaming over the shoulder, and she's looking up, and she's like, I'm sorry, you booked with points. We can't do anything. I was like, is there any, we've got our daughter, we haven't seen our daughters in 9 days. And she's like, let me see. And then all of a sudden it's like, tick, 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 tick. And so it went from, you've got to call corporate, you've got to do this, to, listen, I totally understand. Is there anything? Is there anything? And she's like, got us on. And the people in the back were losing their minds about something else. And she looked over at the lady next to her, and she's like, take your time. Everything's delayed 3 hours. No one's going anywhere. And like, tick, 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 tick. And then smiles back at us. And I was like, tactical and genuine. Like, I led with empathy, but I could easily be like, listen, I'm status. You got to move us. Like, let's go. And she'd be like, listen, I can't do anything for you. She could go by policy, but she decided to go above policy to make it happen because empathy. So purposefully positive isn't about, again, it's not manipulation. It's not disingenuous. It's not being fake. It's choosing the energy we lead with. That's what I really want to make sure that there's a discernment with that. It's not being Pollyanna. It's about saying, okay, what can I do here? What can I control? If I can't control the outcome, how can I can control how I approach it. Because energy creates opportunity, or it pulls you away from it.
Let me ask you what, so I'm sure there's days that you're just like, this is it. I'm done. I don't want to be Matt for a minute.
Oh yeah.
What tactics do you use? Like, is it just putting the mindset away? Is it doing something in the morning to get that frustration out? Is it meditate? I don't know. What tactics that do you use?
Great question. So I do have a morning routine and a ritual, right? So I do follow like a version of, how many are familiar with Miracle Morning, Hal Elrod and the Savers, right? So I do a version of that. I'm doing 75 hard again right now. It's day 2. Today's day 2. And so, 10 pages of reading. And then what I pair that with is, so I'm making sure that what I'm reading is also empowering and uplifting and purposeful. But then a lot of the social media content that I consume is very positive and purposeful. And so a lot of people are like, well, social media is all negative. No, social media is simply a mirror. People don't understand algorithms. The algorithm shows you what you're interested in. And the thing is that if you're seeing something negative and you stop to read it, you don't have to click like, you don't have to comment. It's measuring how fast you scroll past something. So if you see something negative and you scroll on it, even if you didn't click like or engage, Facebook and TikTok is like, you like this, we're going to send you 3 more. And you slow down again. And you're like, Facebook's garbage. It's all negative and mean. It's like, no, it's not. It's what you like. It's what you're reading. So I purposefully engage and comment on powerful, positive, and uplifting content. And guess what? My feed is amazing. I share the best of the best. I share things to my stories and reels. Guess what? My social media is part of my tactical advantage. So that's part of it. Now, I'm human. And part of my behavioral profile is like a really high desire to be liked. And so that causes me sometimes to like maybe overextend myself in a certain way. Now, in my world, in leadership, et cetera, when people decide to like leave our organization or make moves or whatever, sometimes I can take it personally. The worst thing for me, like honestly, speaking of social media, is when I go down and it says like people that you may know, and you're like, we were friends yesterday. And it says add friend. And it's literally like, we just had a conversation. They're like, hey, no hard feelings. I'm just doing what's best for me and my family. Perfect. Hey, congratulations. Anything you need? Perfect. Good. Boom. And then someone you may know, you're like, are you kidding me right now? Like I go into a spot. I'm like, so I have a high desire for justice and retribution. Like I bring guns to knife fights. I bring bats to a rock fight. Like that's what I do. So my instinct is to go right at it. Like I will pull you by the collar and be like, let's talk about this. However, that's not a good energy. That doesn't solve anything. So I do have someone I can call. And I'll call that person and I'll say, hey, do you have 2 minutes? Because I'm about to post or I'm about to call somebody. I need you to talk me off this. Right. And so I'll get it out. And he's like, so how does that feel? And I was like, not good. It's like, here's the thing. Taking action on negativity is like McDonald's. You think it's going to be delicious. You crave it. But the moment you have it, as soon as you're done, you're like, that was a bad idea. That doesn't feel good at all. No one needs 2 Big Macs and a 20-piece. You're laughing.
It's true though.
That's where this guy goes. And you're like, ugh. So same thing. I even like having that visceral reaction to respond or react negatively. Afterwards, you feel the same way. You're like, that doesn't feel good. And I don't know if I what good was that? Like, I didn't repair that relationship. Like, ooh, I showed them. Now what? So what? So what? And here's the thing. They don't care or know. I'm the only one harboring or holding. And so that's the thing is like anger and negativity is like drinking poison and hoping somebody else dies. They're not thinking about it. So why am I thinking about it? And so I go, if they're not thinking about it, why am I thinking? All I have is for the energy of the people that want to lean in, right? And so it's that. So I have that conversation and I go, can I take my leadership hat off for a second? Can I not be a coach for a minute? Because this son of a, I swear, I just want to, and he goes, but do you really? I was like, no, and I'm not gonna, but I needed to say it to you.
You know, thinking from the rescue world, like maybe that's part of it, is having that person that
you have to have it
before you go through, or when you're going through that situation, or you have a particularly difficult, somebody that's not involved with your organization that can just say, here's the the mood you're in, and here's how we can help change. You know what I mean? Somebody who's maybe a little more disconnected from the day-to-day.
Yeah. And then there's just a couple like affirmations or mantras that I keep in mind as well. And Jordan Peterson, I just saw this. He mentioned this just the other day, and it articulates what I've always thought in a certain way so much better than I could have ever. So I'm going to share that thought. And he said, those who need love the most exhibit their need for love in the most unlovable way. Those who need loved most exhibit that need sometimes in the most unlovable way. Think about the animals that you rescue. They're not warm and fuzzy when you're getting them because they're hurting. They don't know what love is yet. And so the response to any approach is not lovable. Do we not rescue them? Do we not save them? We got to wear thicker gloves, right?
Yeah, man, that hits home, because I think that, especially in the rescue community, sometimes, we expect more from people, obviously, than we do the animals. But sometimes maybe we put expectations on the people, especially because what I can tell you is most of the public has no idea what happens behind the scenes in animal rescue, right? It amazes me that I still have clients who call me and say, hey, I have a dog for you. No, we're going the other way. We don't want to bring them in. We want them going out. So, it's just, they don't get it. And we react to them as though they're already in the day-to-day like we are, right? So maybe some of the expectations that we're putting on people are a little unfair given the knowledge that they actually have.
Yeah. Another saying that I always hang on to on this topic as well that can help in managing your energy is all frustration is simply due to an unmet expectation, whether that expectation is verbalized or internalized. Anytime somebody lets you down isn't about them, it's about you. Is you hoped for more, expected more, thought they could do more. At the end of the day, it was your expectation. They don't let you down. They let their expectation of them down, like from you. You're the one that had an expectation that was let down, but it wasn't about them. And so if we release all expectation, you free yourself from a lot of unnecessary energy.
And I also think there's some understanding of that expectation from the public side, because this is one of the things that happens a lot in rescue, and everyone in rescue can understand this, is you get a call from somebody who says, hey, I have this dog I have to surrender for whatever reason. Every rescue, for the most part, in the country is typically full. And your response is, I'm sorry, we can't take the animal. And their response is always off the chain, right? Way crazy. But that's because their expectation of you is, hey, when I call this person, they're going to jump and help, right? So maybe understanding other people's expectations of us in the rescue community changes that mindset a little bit for our side. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think sometimes we put expectations on the public that aren't fair, right? Because this isn't their day-to-day. But they also are coming to us for help. And when we say we can't help, it's devastating to them on that side. We have to do it so often, it's not as big of a deal to us. But to that person who's calling that you're their last resort, that can be pretty devastating.
Kind of on that point too, is I feel like the public thinks that they can just take care of an animal. And so when they are reaching out for help, at least in our area, they like, it's a last resort kind of thing. And then, when they get the response back, like, hey, I can't help, or maybe, we're too full, we can't do anything, it makes it more hurt than just like if you were asking for help with like your car getting fixed, or, you know, something a little more trivial, I guess.
Well, and their expectations there, right? Their expectation is when they make that phone call, that's going to be the end of their worry. So when they find out that, wait a minute, that's not, this person can't help, now I have to start over again. Like that probably is pretty emotional for the person on the other end, and just being able to understand you weren't the solution. You didn't meet the expectation. That's really where they're frustrated. They're not mad at you. They're mad that their expectation wasn't met.
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I on the right track here, Matt?
Yeah. So I guess the question that I would have is, people do best with this and. So if it's, listen, we can't help you, we're really full, and here are two other options, or here's another number, or also, we can't help you, we're full because this, and here's a possible alternative option, etc. And I don't know exactly what those are, what they could be. Most people think about growing up. What was the hardest response from your parents when you wanted something and you can't, and you're like, why? And they explain. And then finally they're like, because I said so. And so when we respond to others in that same capacity, when we hit them with the, well, because I can't, I said so. And they're like, why? That people go back to childhood, right? One of the most powerful programs that I ever participated in as a participant, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, it's called the Landmark Forum. Has anyone listening or watching ever done Landmark? So it's like a 3.5-day intensive on breaking down the programming or the paradigms that we have around this exact conversation, right? And it's they talk about a lot of the whole concept of the Landmark Forum itself is understanding that life is empty and meaningless, and it's beautiful because it's empty and meaningless. And what they mean by that, and this is a 3.5-day conversation exploration into when something happens, it just happens. All of the emotion, the ego, the feeling, the hurt, the whatever we have around this thing that happened is simply our story. It has nothing to do with what happened. When someone hurt us, they didn't hurt us. They did something. The way we perceived it hurt us. They didn't hurt us. They did something. When someone has a birthday party and you weren't invited, they didn't hurt you. They had a birthday party. Did they have a birthday party? Yes. Did that birthday party hurt you? No. What hurt you? The story of why you should have been invited to that party hurt you. Right? So there's a 3.5-day conversation around this, and it's fascinating of a room of 150 people that bring up, they're like, yeah, but what about this? And the instructor's like, it's irrelevant. It's your feelings. Stop. Like, you're like, but, and you're like, no, that happened. What you're feeling is your problem. It's your story. And you're like, but my feelings are important and I've earned them. And they're like, that happened. Story. But back with that is that there are certain phases of our upbringing and our growing up. There's different levels of our childhood where we develop certain responses to not getting our way or resistance. And they call them trump cards. And if anybody's watching this, it's like a Landmark Forum practitioner. I know I'm messing all this up. I'm not certified to talk about this. You should take the course. And one of the trump cards that people have is maybe you've recognized this, is the they get mad and then they take their ball and go home. They're like, well, if you're not going to do this, I'm just going to go. Or one of the trump cards that people develop is if I cry, people will then like acquiesce to me. Or some people get internal, they shut down, they say nothing. Like that's their trump card. My trump card is what's called a preemptive strike. That if I'm being held to account or being held accountable, oftentimes I will confess and I'll come up before you even ask me. I'll say, hey, you know what? I didn't get it done. I'm going to own it. I'm taking ownership. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's commendable. That good. Thanks for saying it first. But really the high performer coach is like, why? What are you going to do about it? Like, how are you going to make it up? And no one ever calls out the person who confesses first. They go, oh, we'll do better next time. Great job, right? So that's a trump card. And everybody has one. And it's how we've navigated all of those experiences. And like, whether you know it or not, like you've explored all of them and you've held on to the one that works for you the most. How do you know which one? Whenever your spouse, partner, or significant other has hit that button and you have that same argument again. Trump card.
Man, that hit home, Matt. Because just thinking about how we all react to those situations,
we're just walking gushy, like juicy computers. That's it. We are squishy computers out there just operating conditioning programming. That's it.
I'm just thinking about the way I work. And the way I work is if you want to fight, let's fight. And that's a horrible way to take on a situation with your spouse. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Here's the thing. There's no learning in defense. There's no discovery when defending.
Ooh, that hurts.
There's no listening when fighting. There's no growth when resisting.
So let me ask you, if people are trying to develop the skill, what's the first step they need to take? You know, I was going to ask you that.
Well, awareness is always the first step. Willingness to recognize it and take ownership would be the second step. As far as like using mindset and positivity as a tactical advantage, here's a good book. I don't know if you can read it or not. It's T. Harv Ecker's Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. It's old school. It's super good. Mine's all like highlighted and like written in. And what I didn't know, check this out. Super cool. I got this from a bookstore. It was signed by the author.
Oh, that's cool.
Energy. It's on purpose. It happens for a reason, right? That's a good one. So, and then just, I would say, I mean, as a coach, I'm always going to say, find a mentor, find a coach. If this is something that you really want to develop and practice and get better at, like find somebody that has that as a specialty or focus, right? Like there's tactical and practical knowledge that people have. That's training. So there's a difference between training and coaching, right? Training is practice and reps. Coaching is about winning the game, and winning the game is all up in here. It's no longer like when you're in the game, it's too late to practice the reps. The coach can see the field, help you modify, adjust, overcome, start to take on, and overcome those things. So coaching is, I would recommend for anybody. Another word for coaching is therapy. I've got several coaches in my life. One of them, his name is Frank, and our whole family goes to Frank. We have family coaching. So I go, my wife and I go, and then the four of us go to Frank. He's our family coach. He's technically a therapist, but he's our family coach.
Yeah, but I don't think therapy is something that in the rescue world, a lot of people take advantage of, and certainly coaching just isn't there. That's why we kind of created Real Estate Pet Project in the first place, was the coaching that we were all getting in real estate. Most of it transfers to any small business. Mm-hmm. And rescues really are, even though they're nonprofits, they're really small businesses. And so being able to bring that coaching and give them ideas, these are just things that aren't available currently.
My call right before this is a owner of a florist shop. Like, I don't just coach realtors and agents. I have a title company and florist shop. Like, I coach humans that are in relationships with people, and navigating people is my business. How you do it and what you do it for, that's up to you. That's personal, right? Like, working with people, that's my skill set.
Well, I think for the rescue community, that can be hard because, to be honest, most of us aren't people. That's why we're animal people, right? I like talking to people who can't talk back. It works great for me. They can't argue. Works great for me.
So then I trust then that this resonates, because animals are energy. And so if any of this up to this point has been airy-fairy and you say you're an animal person, you can't say that anymore. Yeah. Because the same energy that connects you to them is the same energy that you're putting out to others, or not.
And the way that we approach an animal that's in trouble should be the way that we approach an upset person, right? Instead, what happens is the upset person we think should act like us, so we're mad at that upset person because they're mad at us. Where if an animal's on the ground and it's snarling at me because it got hit by a car and it wants to kill me, I'm not running up to it going, let's fight, right? I'm going up and saying, oh my gosh, I'm giving that empathy that we probably forget or is missed with the public. Yeah. Wow. That hits home, man. And I think that's going to hit home for a lot of those in the rescue community, that maybe that's the way we approach the people should be very similar to the way we approach an animal that's in trouble.
Yeah. I would I'd like to say that many of us have evolved beyond, and yet I've worked with enough people that are more animal than people.
Give me 2 more books, man, that you're reading right now, or 2 more books that are along this subject.
Oh, well, one of the books that's really just jacked my world up right now is called The Mountain Is You. And it has to do with overcoming self-imposed limiting beliefs. And it's incredible. So if you're finding difficulty really tapping into or putting your purpose into action because you've got all the what ifs and I don't deserve it, or I'm not qualified, or all those thoughts that we all have, right? Before we attempt something outside or bigger than ourselves, everyone has it. That conversation around it, how we got there and what's like the science and stuff behind it, that's super, super good. That, and one second, let me see let me pull up my Audible here real quick. And Ed Milet's The Power of One More. If you haven't, you must, I would say, next, that's your next read. The Power of One More. And I don't know if you've ever heard or listened to his story. I mean, the guy, he talks about a couple different things. And one of the things he talks about is that every family has the one. And it's the person who changes the trajectory of the legacy, that breaks the cycle of scarcity, abuse, whatever it is. And he was the one for his family. And he said one of the things that he always, because of his upbringing, so he grew up with an alcoholic father. like a really abusive alcoholic father. And what he found is that that became his superpower, because in growing up in that kind of environment, he became keenly aware to people's energy and mannerisms, because he could see before his father came to the door which version of his dad was coming home from work, whether he could ask him to go play ball or he had to stay away. So he became really hyper aware of people. And so in his mind, he was saying all the things, he said, so many of us don't attempt or go after the things that we believe we should because of all of the things that we failed or done wrong, and that being like a mark against us. And he says, no. All of your mistakes and failures are actually what qualify you to speak. And then the last thing that he says in the book, and so when I first was listening and reading this book last year, it was almost a year ago, like right now, I was jogging and I had to stop and take notes. And maybe you've heard this saying. It was one of the first times I heard it, or it was one of the times that it finally resonated and stuck. And he said that God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And that if you're called to do anything, lean in, because your qualification's on its way.
That's really powerful, because I think there's nobody in rescue that does this without being called, right? Like that it's a passion for people. We talk about this a lot when it comes to like municipal shelters and that, and how hard it is to run a municipal shelter, because you can't hire somebody for $500,000 a year that's going to do what most of the rescues do. You can't, because it's not unless they have the passion behind it, they're going to quit. No matter how much you pay them, they're going to quit. Yeah, that's big. That's big. One book I will give to all of you rescue folks that I was looking for it on my shelf, so I didn't have to say it, but I don't see where it is. And that is The Simple Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Has anybody ever read that? I'm telling you, that book, especially for what Matt was talking about at the beginning, of being able to not let your emotions dictate the action or influence what the previous action was. That book is good for putting that part away, for understanding exactly that.
Can I share a funny little anecdote around this?
Absolutely.
So our kids are listening, right? They're always listening. And having escaped a carjacking 20 years ago-ish, changed my perspective of how to respond to people in traffic, if you will. And so there are times when other people they're not aware of where you're at. You get cut off, they're tailgating, they speed around. And we have a desire for justice, if you will, right? Like somebody wants to, or you're trying to merge in, and then like the car like comes up next, and they're like, come on. Like, there's always traffic things. And my daughters were really young, and one of the things that, like, anytime somebody cuts us off or does something ridiculous in traffic, I used to make a joke. I said, well, they must really have to go poop. Like, they really got to poop. They got to get to where they're going. And my daughters now, they're like 10 and 13, and then something will happen in traffic and they'll be like, they got to go. They got to go. And so, but that's a choice of how we respond or react to a situation. And the thing is that, and it goes back to the people that need love the most, exhibit it in the most unloving way, is anytime somebody comes at me in a certain energy, I just got to go, what happened? Are you okay? Is everything okay? Like, hey, let's take a second. Let's just breathe. Let's take a second. What's up? How can I help? Because you don't know what call they just got off of, what kind of news they just received, or whatever. Like, the experience that you're having with somebody isn't about you. Something happened. So I'm not going to match that energy. I'm going to come and I'm going to embrace you in some opportunity, some positivity. Like, what's up?
That's big for the rescue world too, man, because I think a lot of times because we see the worst of the worst, we automatically think the worst of the worst, right? So if somebody's relinquishing their dog, our response is, oh, they just don't want the dog, right? When a lot of times there's a lot of emotion behind that, whether it's emotion with the spouse wanting to get rid of the dog, whether it's your landlord's making you, whatever it is, a lot of times that isn't the person's choice. It's the demand that's put on them.
Mhm.
You know, and being able to see it from that side and say, you know, what is the problem? What is really going on here, versus automatically jumping to the conclusion that, oh, this person just doesn't want the animal and they want us to take care of their problem.
Yeah. So you can be anything out there. Be kind.
Yeah.
You can choose to be anything. It's so simple to just be kind.
You wore that shirt just for me today, didn't you?
I mean, I did and I didn't, but I did.
Now you're claiming it, right?
Yeah, we're gonna own it. We're gonna own it. Be like, this is perfect.
Well, guys, I think Matt's got to get going, but I did want to give him a little shout out. If you're in if you're in any business and you need coaching, and everybody really needs coaching. So just know, no matter what business you're in, everybody can use that leg up. And I think coaching's a tactical advantage for people as well.
It's a
Let
cheat
me know. What's
it's a
that?
cheat. If you ever played video games, it's a cheat code. Coaching is a cheat code to life and business, period. I'll never not have coaches. I've got 4. Frank, I already talked about Frank, right? And I've got 3 others. So, yeah. So if any part of this conversation resonated and you just wanted to take this offline, or you've got a personal conversation that you wanted to have around it, and maybe just mastermind about a couple of thoughts or ideas or tactics around it, reach out to me. I'm on social media. You can find me. It's Matt with 1 T.
Here, I'll put the last name because I always butcher it.
It should be up by my name, my screen there.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Just find me on social, find me on Facebook. I'm on TikTok, Casey Realtor Matt as well. You can see me with my daughters dancing.
Guys, look up Matt, follow him, and definitely if you need help, Matt's the man that I know what a big change it was for me. I can tell you just one last thing before I let you guys go. When we did that national program together, at the very beginning, we had to write down 4 goals, 3 or 4 goals, right? And mail it to ourselves. Isn't that what we had to do? Or we gave it to you guys and you mailed it to us.
No, you write down a year out all the things that you've accomplished this year, and they were your goals, as if they had already happened. You mail them to yourself, and it's a thank you letter to the author of the program. And then you put it in an envelope, and we hold on to it and we mail it back to you in a year.
And the big thing that hit me with that is I had 4 or 5 goals, and my one goal was to be at a point where my wife no longer had to work. And that was my hoop dream goal that wasn't going to happen in a year. And what was interesting was that was the one goal that did fully come to fruition. A couple of them I kind of blew out of the water just because I wasn't understanding what those goals meant. But absolutely, that little piece right there was huge for me. Because I think it made me realize that changing mindset in the long run changed the goal. Right. And I don't think most people catch that very often. My goal just kept going further, right?
Yeah.
So, Matt, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for the opportunity to just kind of share and have the conversation with everybody.
And I'm sure I'll pick your brain on here about something else.
Anytime.
All right, brother. I appreciate you.
Hi, guys.
Thank you.